Good morning, afternoon or evening, beautiful people, all in crypto here, and welcome back, guys, for what is going to be nothing short of another jam-packed daily market update. You know the drill. If you are new around here, every single day around 1 p.m. UK time, we drop an update just like this one to help you guys stay up to date with the latest and greatest things happening in the crypto space, but also the broader markets. That's exactly what we're going to be attempting to do in this video. So do become a subscriber for future updates. We typically don't miss one. We're going to start things off by looking at some interesting stats in relation to Ethereum that may be telling in regards to retail participants and perhaps the ilk of investors, the kind of investors that are actually investing in Ethereum at this stage. I promise you're going to find it quite funny. Then we're going to be talking about Goldman Sachs and what they've recently announced, and that is a cut in US recession odds, and they're upping their targets on the S&P on obviously the back end of what was announced yesterday and Sunday, which was the US-China trade deal. And that was the likely outcome. We said tariffs are going to get or end in is deals and perhaps lower tariffs across the board. And we're still yet to see how all of that unfolds. But we said what the markets were pricing in was a literal implementation and escalation of tariffs set out on Liberation Day. And we said there's going to be a middle ground, the 90-day pause. You've got the markets repricing to the upside. With continued progress, you're going to actually get, I believe, an entire retracement of this pullback. Interestingly, though, because of the velocity of the news, the S&P gapped up quite substantially. It's a bit of a danger because typically gaps get closed. And that could be why crypto was kind of stalling somewhat as more kind of observant money knows that, like ourselves. And of course, today you've got CPI, US inflationary metrics. They'll be out by the time you're watching this, I'm sure. The forecasts have actually been lowered to 2.4. And I actually think under Trump's America, you're going to get low inflation. And I think I get that predominantly based on what I'm looking at for oil. And then we'll talk a little bit about crypto. And I want to sort of re-highlight the meta news just because of how significant it truly is. And we've got Gilbert Verdrian highlighting it. Let's start off on a bit of a funny note. So this is from Cointelegraph. Latest Google searches for Ethereum, spelled Ethereum, are spiking, signaling retail investors are flooding back into the markets. Now, I think this is very telling in regards to the kind of ilk of investors that are investing into Ethereum at this stage. Not a lot of them can spell. I know what you're all thinking, Rupert, you're dyslexic and frequently mess up the thumbnails, but I'm happy to have a joke at my expense. Let's have a joke at somebody else's. But I think a perhaps serious takeaway of all of this is that actually we are seeing retail enter back in. And Cointelegraph here kind of hinting that retail's kind of dumb with the misspelling. But I think perhaps just Ethereum investors. Of course, I think Ethereum has done wonderful things. We all owe it a hell of a lot on a serious note. But for me, I'm not an investor in Ethereum at this stage of the cryptocurrency market. I think there are layer ones that do far more without the complex layer two ecosystem. And that Ethereum is going to lose ground over time. I think by the end of this year, it's not going to be a top two cryptocurrency. And I think it's going to continue to lose ground. And was kind of the beta test for what's ultimately coming. Talk about Goldman Sachs and some macro stuff. This is from Seeking Alpha. What a great name. Goldman Sachs cuts US recession odds and ups S&P target on lower tariffs. Now, this is obviously on the back end of everything that took place yesterday. Goldman Sachs economists lowered their recessionary forecasts for the US to 35% from 45%. Now, this is in line generally with most things, and they've all been repriced on the back end of the US-China trade deal that was announced in Geneva, Switzerland by Scott Bessent. And we've got data that has followed this in regards to they're now putting 30% tariffs on China. And we've actually said this, you may result in net lower tariffs on the back end of everything that Trump announced. And I can feel the trigger that we're letting off when we sort of support some of the policies in Trump's America. That doesn't mean I support everything that he says and everything he's ever done. But economically, if I was an American citizen, he'd have been the person I voted for. I don't think he's perfect. And I think his economic policies are going to do more good than bad, certainly as it relates to me as an investor investing in sort of global markets. And obviously on the back end of this, all the repricing we basically told you the kind of story behind this. This is the fears that have come on the back end of tariffs and the announcements and all the uncertainty, right? Markets don't like uncertainty. They've priced it in with the odds of recession, etc., going up. Then, and what they're pricing in is a literal implementation of Liberation Day. Then with a kind of 90-day pause, it showed probably more so than anything a willingness to negotiate and look for a resolve to all of this. And then that's when you have this rally. And actually today, you've retraced nearly 78% of this rally. The kind of issue that I have is you do have a gap here. Now, you do have a gap here. But this, in my opinion, at this stage has gone beyond the point of just a relief rally, and I think is going to entirely engulf things on the back end of the fundamental news that we thought was logically going to come out of the tariffs. And of course, the cryptocurrency market is very correlated to this, but Bitcoin, crypto generally, is following the exact technical roadmap that we've set out for it all. We don't miss, and we're making money, and we have been for the past, I mean, if you look at the return over really the past 3 years when we got back into the cryptocurrency space, we're doing spectacular. Get on that journey. Become a subscriber. Take a step even further and become a Patreon. We're starting to get on some interesting guests talking about the cosmology of the universe and things like this. Just as extra content, really. Because I think if you can understand the game in the world that you're in, you're going to play it significantly better. So do get on board there. So I am a little bit worried about this gap. It's a bit ominous. Could have been why crypto stalled somewhat. Yesterday, of course, it's worth me mentioning, we did stream it. It's a very successful stream. 40-something thousand viewers, which is amazing. Just on one stream. It was a few hours long as well, which is great retention rate. It's very interesting, everything that's happening. And the SEC, headed by Paul Atkins, met with BlackRock, Fidelity, Franklin Templeton, and a whole host of others, specifically, essentially, to talk about tokenization. And I think the future is a very clear and bright one. Let's stick on some of the happenings economically. So we'll see how the S&P opens up today. The E-mini for the NASDAQ is slightly down, but generally flat. You know, things like MicroStrategy, these sort of things playing out in the manner that we expected them to. Also some news, because we like to just fill your head with all the news possible. Coinbase will now enter the S&P 500. Now, I've owned Coinbase, and I have a group of people who have also done the same thing. This also had a falling wedge on it, and it's going to play out, in my opinion, to the bigger targets that we have. But this is where we were buying Coinbase. And I have a group of people that can attest that. We've also got other stocks that we think have insane multiples. From where they are, we're talking like 30x's. And actually now is a great time to start looking in stocks. Even though I'm all in crypto, we are looking more and more at stocks because I do think there's some great opportunities. Electric vehicles, I think, is interesting. I think, you know, there's miners that are interesting, specifically precious metal miners, biotech companies. You know, there's so much opportunity out there, and it winds me up. There's two kinds of people. There's winners and losers. When I hear people moaning, oh, crypto's hard. Yeah. Welcome to the real world. I'm glad crypto was the baptism into it that you probably needed, and you either sink or swim. There are so many opportunities out there as it relates to the market. When I hear people moaning, it drives me up the wall. Why are you moaning? You know, life is hard. Get on with it. But you can make it easy for yourself. And I think one way you can do that is through financial education and investing. Anyway, Rupert, shut the hell up. Stop ranting. Let's talk about what's taking place today. We've got core CPI, CPIs month on month, and CPIs year on year. According to the Forex Factory, this is coming out the same as it was last month. Now, the TE forecast has it slightly higher. It was coming in about 2.6, 2.7. If you look at true inflationary stats, it's got it next to nothing, like 1 point something. And I think under Trump's America, and one reason we thought Trump was going to win was essentially how crude oil specifically, was looking. Where is my crude oil? Where are you? We've got so many things that we're tracking. Here we are. You know, crude oil's on the cusp of a major breakdown, I believe. And we've said this for a long time, and it's happening. First target's been met for crude oil, and look at where you interacted. You've got a lower one. And what that does for inflation is going to be interesting. But this, of course, filters into the Fed, which is very, I guess, hostile or adversary to Trump and his regime. There's still a lot of unknown and things to be worked out in regards to all of this. When it comes to crypto, you guys know the drill. Technically, we're just following the scent, following the trail. following what we're getting technical promise for. It's a matter of time before this is entirely engulfed. All you've done is to run into prior resistance here, and you're finding it as that. You'll push through it, and you'll embark onto some of these higher targets that we have, and that's going to make the space buoyant, and do the same thing for the altcoin sector and the altcoins that we have. And it's an amazing time to be in the cryptocurrency space. I want to talk fundamentally about something that's huge that really didn't get the love or desire that it wanted, because it's to do with stable coins, and you want to look at the protocols that facilitate stable coins. But this is from Gilbert Verdrin, the CEO of Quant Network. Obviously, they were very popular recently, having taken part in, or been a major player, an enabler in the kind of digital euro. Meta, the company that once ignited the digital currency race with its Libra, later Diem initiative, is said to be re-entering the stablecoin market, this time with regulatory alignment on its side. Originally envisioned in 2017, and launched in 2018, Libra represented an ambitious attempt by a private entity to introduce a global digital currency. However, it encountered formidable regulatory barriers and intense scrutiny over privacy concerns, ultimately leading to a discontinuement. By the way, the people that were behind that project went on to found Sui and Aptos. Not everybody knows that. Yet Libra's legacy continues. It catalyzed a wave of innovation across the DeFi and blockchain, accelerating efforts to bring assets and money on chain, enabling users to transact and settle globally in real time. This concept has now been widely accepted by regulators, but more importantly, institutions who are very closely migrating to on-chain digital finance. The world is moving on-chain, guys. For new entrants without Meta's scale or reach, launching a stablecoin or building substantial user base in the stablecoin market is becoming increasingly difficult. The upper tier or tiers are now set to dominate by the larger players, vying for users, trust and adoption. Tools like Visa's stablecoin dashboard offer insights into the evolving landscape. It's actually a great thing to take a look at Visa on chain. The financial system, as we know it, needs reinvention. We must encourage more pioneers and innovators to step forwards with new ideas and bold innovations. As I stated at 2019's conference, it will take many companies and visionaries working together to build the financial system of tomorrow. That's what's happening, guys. What are we creating now? It's not just an upgrade, but a transformational infrastructure designed to serve the next generation of finance. It's breathtaking what's taking place. It's why I get so annoyed when people moan and complain about being in the cryptocurrency space. You don't need to be here. And we get pushback for saying that. Be here if you want to. Seize the opportunity in the day, as it were, if you see fit. That's it from me, guys. I'm going to love and leave each and every one of you. Thanks always for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.